right, so I would like to officially welcome you to our very exciting event, and that is building a sustainable last-mile logistics ecosystem in Zambia. It's quite a mouthful, but it does make for a very exciting conversation. In our audience today, we're actually very privileged and excited to have the Digilogic Consortium. Just give them a round of applause, everybody. We are really excited to have you in Zambia. For those of us that might not know, Digilogic is a consortium that is made up of the European Union and African Union innovation hubs, and they are in Zambia to basically tour the logistics sector, and also with a primary focus on the last mile logistics ecosystem. So today they were actually in the field. They got to see Zambia and got to visit some of the logistics companies, and I'm sure maybe later on in the event we might have one or two of them just give us a bit of a feel or the experience that they had today. But thank you so much, and we're really excited to have you. All right, I'd like to now call upon our entrepreneurship manager, who's just going to run us through a little bit of what we do with regards to startups and the ecosystem. And then after that, we will have our co-working manager. As you can see, we're in a beautiful, lovely space. This is our co-working space, and yes. She's doing a little dance at the back, but she will be here just to tell us a bit more about that as well, some of our amenities as well, and basically where we fit in as co-working. So I do encourage you to have a great event. Later on, we'll move on to the panel discussion, and afterwards, we'll have the Q&A session. All right, are we excited?
Yeah.
I'm sensing a low, Are we excited? Okay, BongoHive, we're fun. I believe we're a fun group, so please feel free. Don't be too rigid. This is home. All right, I'll hand over to Kawela to take it up.
Welcome to BongoHive again. Thank you for making time to come to this event. My name is Kawela. I am the entrepreneurship manager. I manage entrepreneurship programs at BongoHive. And so, thinking about today's conversation that we'll be having, focusing on logistics, I think just to remind everybody, logistics is among the sectors, or at least infrastructures, that need to be built, and on which other sectors get to be birthed, or at least work efficiently when we have a working logistics infrastructure. Other, obviously, not so obvious, but other infrastructures that I think we have been seeing being built on which other business rely include finance and also internet infrastructure. Having high-speed internet, having efficient finance for e-commerce, and logistics as well, I think fits in well within that, because we do understand retail, health, all of these get to feed off an efficient logistics infrastructure. So this is quite a relevant discussion that we'll be having, and I'm looking forward to it. So at BongoHive, we support entrepreneurs from ideation all the way to growth. And so we help you determine a product market, firstly, problem solution fit, product market fit, and also business model and market fit as well. So we have 3 programs that we run. The Discover program, which supports you entrepreneurs at ideation stage, and we help them ideate, validate their ideas through a 2-week boot camp. Then we have the Launch program, so that's more towards the early stage entrepreneurs, and basically we're helping them create more processes within their businesses and also help them scale. And we have the Thrive model, where we help accelerate businesses and connect them to investors. So that's pretty much what we do here at BongoHive. Please feel free, you're welcome. We are a hive of great minds. Like we always say, we work with great minds that are building viable solutions that change the world. And our goal with entrepreneurs is to help you build products and services that customers love. So again, you're welcome here, and thank you so much.
Welcome to the Hive. I'm excited to have all of you here. This is National Anthem, but I genuinely mean it. I'm excited to see faces at the Hive. I love seeing faces at the Hive. So I'm Choloy, I'm the hub manager here. And I wanted to just speak a little about my co-working space, our co-working space. I personalized it, yes. Yeah, so like Kawela said, we help great minds from ideation to growth. And our co-working space offers that environment. It's peaceful, it's good, it's surrounded by great minds that will help you. You don't have to be enclosed or rigid. Talk to someone. That's why I kept insisting. Don't talk to the person that you came with or live in the same house with. Mingle with somebody that you don't know. That's Hive. Yeah, so we rent out office space from as little as a day to a month to long term to 3 years. You can rent out the space. Yeah, so we have the hot desk, we have dedicated desk, we have private offices, boardrooms, meeting rooms, and the outside. Yes, so please, when you have events, come to the Hive. We are happy to host you. We're happy to make you feel at home. We're happy to connect you with people that would help you with whatever you're doing, business-wise, of course. Yes. Yeah, so we're excited. I got to talk to, I think, most of you, yes, except for the gentleman here. He was outside talking to people, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I talked to all of you. So I hope even after this, you'll be able to mingle and get each other's numbers. And yeah, I hope to see you at the Hive renting space. Yeah, please enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Cholwe and Kawela. I'll now hand over to our moderator, who will now take up the session.
Good evening, everyone. Please, a big hand of applause for yourselves for showing up here. Fantastic. Just before I go into what we need to do today, I'm just going to introduce myself. My full names are Waison Lungu, Zambian born and bred. I studied in the US in Washington, D.C., international business. I came back home in 2010. I joined the robust telecom company called Airtel. I'm the pioneer of the first mobile money in Zambia, Airtel Money. I launched it on September 11th, 2011. So I want to make sure I get the credit for it. Yeah, so I've been very instrumental in building up rural logistics. So in 2018, I formed a company called Onyx. I'm the founder and CEO. And we provide mobility, which are bicycles, smartphones, and solar home systems to rural women farmers. So we believe food security in this country is huge. So I'm happy to be here as your host and moderator for this last mile sustainability building session. So without further ado, good evening and welcome to the panel discussion on the building a sustainable last mile logistic ecosystem in Zambia. We are privileged to have assembled an esteemed panel of professionals in the business and startup sector to share their insight into the future of the Zambian economy. We would like to thank BongoHive for hosting us here today and providing us with the opportunity to discuss how we can build a sustainable last mile logistics ecosystem in Zambia. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this panel discussion on building a sustainable last mile logistic ecosystem in Zambia. We have with us today a distinguished panel of experts who will introduce themselves shortly. And who will share also their insights and experiences on this critical topic. Our panelists are leaders and innovators in the logistics and transportation industry with extensive experience in creating sustainable and effective last mile delivery solutions. They bring with them a wealth of knowledge and expertise that undoubtedly enriches our discussion and help us find innovative solutions to the challenges facing last mile logistics in Zambia. We have Chilanga Cement, we have Afri Delivery, and then we have our guest from Ghana who will be able to introduce themselves. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming the panel that will be discussing this. So without wasting much of your time, I would ask briefly all the panels to introduce themselves, starting with Sesinam from Ghana, and also how basically they are able to provide value to their clients and customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Sesnam Dagadu. I am, I don't know what I am now. I have spent the last 10 years building SNUCode, which is an addressing system for the developing world. Most of the times when you hear something is for the developing world, you imagine something that is cut down, a sort of budget version of the real thing. But we've built an addressing system which arguably gives the developing world a lot of advantages over existing addressing systems in the Western world. So, for example, our addressing system is over 400 times more accurate than what you get in the UK. It allows you to fly drones. It allows you to digitally sign objects and stuff like that. And I come to this with a background in defense, having worked for the US and British militaries in building systems for non-lethal systems, I hasten to add, for bomb disposal, for nuclear submarines and things like that. And spending some time with Land Rover Jaguar building vehicle navigation systems. And in the final stint before I started doing this, I was working for the British Police doing digital forensics. So it's quite a varied career, but we bring in all the expertise that we gain in all of these spaces to build really sustainable solutions. I think the big thing for us is that we are very, very proud of the fact that we build our technologies in Africa for Africans by Africans. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sesenam. I'm sure we've heard what the Ghanaians are doing. Thank you. Yeah, so next, seated to me is an industry leader, Afshon Wallace. He's leading one of the biggest logistics company in Zambia, Afri Delivery. So he can introduce himself and probably just indicate to us what value he's providing to his customers. Thank you.
Hi. A bit nervous. So yeah, my name is Wallace, Afshon Wallace. I'm the founder and the CEO of Afri Delivery. So Afri Delivery started as a food delivery service back in 2017, and we later scaled to probably what you guys don't know now, which is also last mile delivery. A big part of our business is last mile delivery. We are mainly a tech company, so we build technology, and of course Afri Delivery was our first project. We are a team of close to 100 people in Zambia, in 3 cities. That's Lusaka, Kitwe, and Ndola. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, recently, but I'll speak about this later as we go. So we recently launched our other product called Afri Supermarket, which is basically your platform for fast-moving consumer goods last year in October. And we're happy to say that it's scaling according to our expectations. And I think I'll speak a bit more about it as we continue discussing about sustainable logistics and last mile delivery. Thank you.
A big hand for Wallace. Yeah, and then to my far right, we have James Piri from Chilanga Cement. I'm sure even this building, I can already smell Chilanga Cement in it. So he can go ahead and just introduce himself and tell us what they're doing in terms of helping customers. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name's James Chuma Piri. It's the most generic Zambian name you ever find. So if I tell my colleague around the world in the cement industry that I was at BongoHive event, they'll be like, what were you doing there? Because naturally, cement and construction, we call them the laggers, the lagging industry in terms of innovation. So if you look at where we are as an industry and where the banking sector is, the telecoms and everyone, they're far ahead. So my job is business strategy and development. So mainly I look at the midterm and the long-term strategic roadmap of the business. And this moves from big strategic decisions such as decision to sell Lafarge Zambia to become Chilanga Cement, as well as how do we optimize our route to market, how do you optimize our supply chain. I was in charge of developing the strategic roadmap as well as the strategic vision of the business, which saw us introduce e-ordering, last mile solutions, and things like that. So that's why I'm here. Not here to sell you cement.
Thank you very much. A big hand for James. So I've always told people logistics is changing every day. When you look at the developed countries, they have robust logistics. For instance, in the US, you have Amazon, you have FedEx, you have DHL. There's logistics in the sky. I know in African settings, people used to deliver things using birds. But I guess with climate change, that won't happen. What is my take on that? I just want to make sure that people are able to think about the importance of logistics, especially in the last mile. Most of the industries are concentrated in the line of rail. Do you know why? Because it's easy to transport the goods and services that they want to sell. But we still have people that live 80, 100, 200 kilometers away from the roads and the rail lines. What happens to those people? They still need a living, you know? They need to earn money, they need to work, they need to go places, they need to experience things. So we want to make sure that at the end of the day, we have solutions for those people that do not have access to roads, do not have access to communication and stuff like that. So without wasting much time, this question is to all the panelists. Please speak within a minute or two to the response to the questions that I'll be giving. I'll start with Sesame from Ghana. Logistics is a critical component of the global economy and plays an essential role in facilitating trade and commerce. Tell us about your organization and how you are contributing to the last mile logistics in Zambia, and also on a perspective from the Ghana story. So we'll start with you, Sesame, and then we'll go to Wallace, and then finally go to James. Was the question very scary? All right, so Wallace is still preparing. I'll probably go to Wallace here. Maybe you can speak to that.
Okay, so I'll speak about what we found when we started Afri Delivery and what we have today and where we come in between the two. So when we started Afri Delivery, the ecosystem that we have today didn't exist. All these motorbikes you see on the road, they were not there. All these experienced drivers you see on the road were not there. So even if we came in as a tech company, when I say a tech company, I mean we just wanted to build the technology and have a partner on ground to do the logistics for us. But unfortunately, when we started, all that didn't exist. And we built the logistics part of the business. But as we continued growing, we noticed that there were other people coming up doing the same thing they were doing, and which is also good because it opens up the market. And we had to go back and now start focusing on what our core plan was, which is developing technology that will come and support the upcoming e-commerce platforms. So when I say that, I'm talking about last mile delivery or logistic APIs. So if you're building a website today and you want something delivered, you can give you an open API that will help you when you get to the logistics part. So we do that part for you. So I believe that we will still keep focusing on that part, the tech part, because there are so many other upcoming sites, like I mentioned, e-commerce platforms and so on and so forth. And they, of course, first of all, logistics is very complicated to set up. So we have done that already. So you want to make sure that by the time you finish your product, you don't have to worry about the logistics parts in your business. So that's where we come in and we fill in that gap at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very interesting. So you don't have to worry about reaching your customers. You simply contact Afri Delivery and they'll do the last mile distribution for you. A big hand for Wallace. And also Chilanga Cement. How are you contributing to the last mile logistics in Zambia?
So, fun fact, concrete is the second most used material in the world. Next to water. We have, in a month, our drivers do at least 10 million kilometers just to distribute this product. So logistics is a big part of our business, and because the cost can move from 30% of the price you see to as much as 120% just to get the product where it is. So for us, our business is largely a B2B business. So a majority of the cement is sold to distributors, who then sell to individual home builders, contractors, small-scale contractors. So what we wanted to, when we were setting up the last mile solution, was like, okay, where does our cement go? Who buys it? What's the demographics? So that's the challenge that we wanted to solve, is that we wanted to find out who's the final end user and what do they think about our product. We never have that visibility because usually the distributor picks it up and then we buy it at a container or at a shop, and at that point our relationship is not there with the individual home builder. So that's the problem we wanted to solve, and we wanted to find a way as well to optimize our route to market. Can we sell not just a handful of distributors, but to as many customers, individual customers as possible? So that helps when it comes to your route to market, to have a strong route to market. The more optimized it is, the less likely you'll be shocked when one or two distributors fall out. So that's how we were trying to approach the last mile solution. Yeah.
That's interesting. 1 million kilometers. 10. Wow. I wanted to shortchange you a bit. But that's a lot of kilometers, So Sesnam is now online. How is your organization contributing to the last mile logistics in Ghana? Just 2 minutes max response, please. Thanks.
Okay, so we've built our addressing system to cover the whole of Africa. So not just in Ghana, but even in Zambia, you can use our system. We've built an addressing system that allows people to navigate even when they don't have an internet access, which is, one of the big limiters. We've built into it an optimization algorithm that helps you optimize your deliveries, so you're spending less time on the road per delivery. And we've already integrated with things like drones and cars. So if anyone of you out there wants to start doing deliveries by drone, you can do it. And it's freely available to everybody across the continent to use for non-commercial use. And that's our contribution so far.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Sesnam. Just as you are pondering on that, probably you can answer this question as well. Building a sustainable last mile logistics ecosystem in Ghana requires collaboration between the government, logistic companies, and other stakeholders. What do you think is the role for, number one, the private sector, then number two, the government, and then number three, logistic companies like yourselves?
The government needs to create an enabling environment that allows for, fair competition in the space, and that's absolutely crucial, right? When you have an environment which is not, conducive for, small private startups and things like that, what happens is that investors are very reluctant to invest in these startups, not because these startups are not good, but because, the investors know that the startups are not, are not playing on a fair playing field. And so if there's an opportunity for small startups to do the work, you need to be able to give that to them. And that's in terms of legislation and, policy, the government has a lot of responsibility in that space. The private sector is what really we believe will drive the change, right? So after you create a a good road, as in a good working environment, is the private sector that owns the trucks that run up and down the road and deliver, the sort of potential that any logistics systems have. And they have a responsibility to really compete in a way that improves services, lowers costs for consumers, and cooperate in a way that does the same. So, people have to be People have to be conscious about how much they're competing and when it is okay to compete and when it is, when it makes more sense to collaborate. And I think those are the two dynamics, as it were, from our point of view.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that insight. Now we'll come to our Zambian story. So what do you think is the role of government in the last mile logistics, also the private sector, and also the logistics companies themselves? So I'll start with you, Wallace.
I think mainly I'll speak about education. So when I say education, let me speak about the government first of all. The regulations that we have, they're not really meant for the disruptive space we're in. So when they were coming up with the policies, the regulations, they were generalizing and thinking about traditional postal services, which are very different compared to what we do. For example, if you look at hailing of a courier, there is not necessarily anywhere a customer will go and drop the goods. You have to request for a driver. The driver will physically go to the customer, and then they will pick the goods and deliver to the consumer. Unfortunately for us, the regulations that we use, they show that there's clearly a disconnect between the authorities and our businesses, because when they came up with these regulations, whatever we do today, nobody has expected there will be an app that you can use to order your stuff. We always assume that there will be a physical office where a product will be dropped off and then shipped from there. So I think they need to take some time and educate themselves about the businesses we're building today, especially in the disruptive space. For the private sector, I'll still speak about education still. So they've got the responsibility to educate people, customers themselves about reliable logistic services, which makes it a bit easier, like I said, to open up the market. When it comes to us now as logistics companies, we're responsible to make sure that we're able to provide the best service that we can to our consumers. I've seen a lot of small companies mushrooming everywhere, and it's reducing the quality of the service that people expect. So for us, we invested heavily in education, training, and so on and so forth. But today you can easily buy a bike or two and call yourself a delivery company, or call yourself the best delivery company in the country. And there's no proof or anything to show for that. And it's really diluting the kind of quality of the service you're offering our customers, because our customers are now starting to compare us with whatever they are seeing in the streets, regardless of the price. So we charge what we charge because we know what we've invested in the market, in educating the customer, building the technology, all this stuff. But anybody will come into the market and they will try and put themselves in the same level that we are, and that is really messing up the industry. So I think that's my feedback about that.
Thank you for that. I've got some loaded follow-up questions on that. I think on the side of government, I think the last mile logistics, or even just any logistics, they're supposed to provide an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. And I think even the laws and regulation and policies that the government is supposed to put in place are supposed to actually first start favoring local logistics companies, and then maybe open it up to others that may come and invest in that area. I wish there was a government representation here so we could probably hear what plans the government has. So I'll ask the same question to James. So what do you think is the role of government, the private sector, and also the same logistic companies in making sure that the last mile logistics infrastructure or other things which are required are in place? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll start mainly with the private sector because that's where I'm from, and I think and I'll give a practical example on what we did and how I think to some extent we are also playing a role in this space. So we have a concept which we've used successfully, which we call venture clienting. So what it means is that, look, you're a startup, we see your solution, and it might work for us. So, but it's not yet refined. It still needs a bit of work, and you need someone to take a risk, take a chance, and to give you that space where you can actually grow your logistics business or your last mile solution. So we use a concept called venture clienting. So we'll not give you venture capital per se, where we take a stake in your business, but what we'll do is that we're gonna give you business. We're gonna give you a service level agreement for 2-3 years guaranteed, for you to have some cash flow, for you to continue taking risks and innovating and improving your product. So that's number one role. I mean by private sector, I mean big multinational or big corporations such as ourselves, is that what can we do to ensure that this startup takes off, and they have the comfort to take this risk and innovate, so they're able to actually develop these solutions. So for me, I think that's the number one of the private sector. And for the government, I think it's simple, two things: regulation, quality control. Simple. Develop the regulation, which is in line with the changing times, but also have a quality control aspect where everyone is doing what they're supposed to do as per the regulation. No one is bringing cheap logistical solutions or shortchanging the other startups in the space. I think that is key. And for the logistics companies, the last mile companies, I always say you need to continue innovating, because one year you have this solution, second year COVID comes, and then you have things get disrupted. So, but if you don't continue to build on your technology and understand that you need to continuously improve, then eventually last mile is a low trust. It's a low trust space. It's what we call OTIF, on time and in full. So if the delivery is delayed, if it's not in full, for some reason, then the trust is broken. And everyone will say, you know what, I'll rather go to the container, pick up the cement myself. So I think that is key.
Thank you very much. I had an experience. I looked at something online, looked very nice features. I was like, you know what, I'm going to order this. When it came in the package, I opened it. It didn't look close, not even close to what I saw. And I was like, wow. Now, I ordered this from China. So I told myself, but how am I going to send it back? It will cost me more money. So I think this is one of the issues Wallace was talking about, where you want to make sure that you deliver quality logistics. The Chilanga slogan, full and on time. So if you order 20 liters of fuel, you expect it to be 20 liters. Not when you wait, you find it's 12. The 8 is missing. So now I'm going to go to just specific questions for specific people. This one goes to Wallace. Transportation, warehousing, inventory control, and distribution are just a few of the activities that are involved in the logistic industry. How have you been able to grow the last mile business and activities? What opportunities and challenges have you faced?
Thank you. So I'll mainly talk about the space you're in, which is e-commerce. So for us to keep growing, we made sure that our first priority is to keep innovating. So we have invested a lot of time and resources in the tech itself, just to make sure we keep up with the times. So, and we noticed that our business was not mainly going to be what we started with, but we also needed to be a business that is able to support other incoming businesses or newcomers. And that's why I mentioned that our biggest focus at this particular point is building technology or software as a service, that when you're building your e-commerce platforms, you find existing infrastructure, digital infrastructure and physical infrastructure that you can ride on, so that you don't have to go ahead and build the whole thing yourself. So the challenges we faced, of course, are normal challenges. We can start with simple things like funding. We can talk about, of course, undercutting, where you have people coming into the market and diluting the service or level of quality they provide to the customer, and just becomes a very hard market to sustain. You're looking about pricing, it shrinks your margins and your pricing too. So it's of course a business that that I believe, of course, due to the regulations we have now, it's a very easy business to get into, and that's why we feel on our side that it makes it easier for us if we not only focus on the last mile part of the delivering of the goods, but we also have to play a huge part in being a tech company that builds infrastructure that other companies can use, because I believe that is a very hard part to get, and also a very expensive part also to get as you're building a business. So that's how we're doing it at the moment.
That's really good. This question goes to Sesinam, if you can hear us. So the growth of e-commerce in Zambia and Ghana have created new opportunities for the last mile delivery providers, as more consumers are shopping online and expecting fast, reliable deliveries. However, there are still some barriers to e-commerce growth, both in Ghana and Zambia, such as limited access to digital payments and also lack of trust in online transactions. From your experience with the launch of Snoop Code, how can Ghana and Zambia provide trust and confidence to the public, and how do we protect consumers from online fraud for both individuals and companies?
Okay, well, so this is a problem that we've been dealing with for a long time. I told you in the beginning that New Code has 4 components: addressing, optimization, verification, and integration into future technologies. The question you asked centers around verification. We developed a system, and by the way, we realized that trust is the biggest problem in e-commerce, right? Because we have young people who can deliver things, we have payment systems like mobile money and cash, but all of these come together and they are held together with trust. And so what we developed was a system that removes the need for trust. We came up with a digital signature system, which can be used on both ends. So in order to make sure that you didn't get a product you want, you could easily request a digitally signed image of the product before you pay for it. And so that digitally signed image has the product, where it is located, and at what time that image was taken. The same digital signature can be used upon delivery, right? When the parcel gets delivered. So you don't have a situation where somebody can deliver or can fail to deliver something and claim that they've delivered. I don't know whether that makes sense. So when I deliver a parcel, I get a digital signature, which proves that I was at this location at this time and I gave the parcel to this person. And the brilliant thing about all of what I've described is that all of it works without the internet. And that's a really powerful thing. So it is just as easy to deliver in the most remote rural area as it is in in the middle of the city, and so that's something that we're really proud of doing. So those are the sort of ways in which we deal with it. There are other ways in which other companies deal with it, and we use a lot of those systems of work. What's it called? Referrals and what's it called? And reviews as well. So it's an ecosystem of products that's help sort of either eliminate the need for trust or create trust where it is absolutely needed.
Oh, thank you, Sesenam, for that insight and feedback. This question is for James. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on the last mile delivery in Zambia, as it has in many other countries around the world. What has been the lessons learned, and how are we prepared if COVID resurfaced? What opportunities are there during and post-COVID?
And how are we prepared?
I know you're not a doctor, but
yeah, I know. So it's a misconception that we developed our last mile solutions and e-ordering and e-commerce because of COVID. That is not true. I know Silumesi and Simuzef, they were here. So we had, prior COVID, we had a lot of back and forth with them. I think years. So I'm surprised they invited me back here because we didn't go with them eventually. But the point, I'm a big believer of trend. Like even when I'm doing the strategy and doing the roadmaps, I always say, what is the trend? Is this where this is going? So we had already thought it was necessary. So what COVID did was, unfortunately, was an accelerator, because we had a perfect example to make everyone switch to e-ordering and last mile and things like that. But the biggest lesson I learned during the pandemic and when we're trying to introduce these solutions is do not overestimate the rigidity to change for your customers, because that will limit your innovation. So usually when we sit in a boardroom, you throw out an idea and they say, I don't think our customers will do this. You have to understand that cement is a traditional business. Most of our customers are our grandfathers, our fathers. They've been in this industry for decades, way before most of us were born here. So there was a tendency to overestimate their rigidity, like they won't do it, they will not switch. But with COVID, so what it taught us, with the right environment, the right stimulus, people can change. And you can introduce new solutions to your customer base that will be by far beneficial. I can tell you now is that I can't remember the last time I saw some of the customers walking into our offices. It doesn't happen anymore. They order online, they see their orders, they track their orders, they give bill of lading or online. So that was the biggest takeaway from the innovation that we did during the pandemic. Are we prepared? Obviously, yeah, because we've been through a pandemic before. The same one, we'll probably do better, but I don't think anyone could have prepared for COVID. So that what I always say is that, you can have ups and downs, but the trend, ask yourself, is this where we are going? Is this where my customers are going? Is where the consumer tests are going? If the trend is strong enough, it might take time, but you'll get there. So innovate and plan for the trend.
Fantastic. I've got a very short story. There was a businessman who had a very expensive yacht, I think costing $1 million. In the middle of a lake, it couldn't start. So he hired somebody to come and fix it. And that person came from a distance. They had to use a speedboat to get to the yacht. And when the guy went there, he said, what's the problem? He says, no, the yacht can't move. So the guy, okay, not a problem. He went in the back of the yacht, opened something, touched the switch, and he said, can you start the yacht? And the guy was able to start the yacht. And it was 1 minute job. And he says, oh, send me the bill. The bill was $10,000. And the guy was like, but why did you charge me this much? So the guy said, for turning on the yacht, $1, but for crossing the river to come to the yacht, $9,999. You pay for value. So when you look at logistics, how bad do you want what you want to get? If people want something so bad, price does not become an issue. It's a matter of life and death. So I have a set of 3 questions which are going to go to Sesinam. Probably you can just answer them as quickly as you can. The first one is, how has SNU Code helped address the challenges of the last mile logistics in Ghana? What lessons have been learned and the experiences in Ghana that can be applied in Zambia? How can Zambia benefit from adopting a similar address saving and sharing technology like SNU Code?
Okay. So we pioneered digital addressing. So we have patents going all the way back to 2012. And what we were aiming to do was to have a system that can be used by anyone. Some of the lessons we've learned is that you have to build something that works for the lowest common denominator. And so we spent all this time building a system that worked for somebody with a very basic education, so maybe grade 1 or grade 2. One of the most powerful lessons we learned was, if you make it too complicated, people will not use it. And the people who really convert an addressing system into economic or social value are usually at the bottom of the socio-economic educational pyramid. And so that is what we need to, that's what we really need to do. And so what we've ended up creating was an addressing system that worked for the lowest common denominator, but we also had to work really hard in the background to allow it to do things like fly drones and work, for big data and, machine learning and things like that. You have to design for the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And that is really, really important. Because when Afri delivery grows and it becomes really, really big, it doesn't want to continue serving just the top 5% of Zambian society. You will not grow and be big if you're not serving at least 40% of the population. And so that's really what you want to do. So I think that's the biggest lesson that we've learned, to build for the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And keep your apps small. One of the key drivers has been, when you have a big app, it may seem like an innocuous thing, but when you have a big app and somebody wants to download it, if they can't download it in 30 seconds, they say, "Oh, I'm going to do it later on," and they never do it at all. Right? And so that, in a practical sense, that was also one of the biggest takeaways that we had. You always also have to develop ways for people who are not necessarily tech savvy to be able to, be part of the ecosystem. So, for example, I'm in Liberia right now, and this is what we've done, right? You can get one of these for like 10 cents. And then I can go to my grandmother's house, generate her SNU code for her, and write it on this and stick it to her fridge. So now she can use a normal feature phone or a non-smartphone, call for a delivery and say, "Hey, deliver to 4BN80C," and then the code is written there. And so without a smartphone, my grandmother has now just taken part in the, in this sort of high-tech sort of industry. The final lesson that we've learned is that there has to be a vision component, right? It is very easy for, tech people to concentrate on technology that's designed for things like that. But we are building a system where we are increasingly having to put plaques on people's walls all over the what's it called? All over the country. So we just started in Liberia. We put the first plaque on the president's house literally about 3 or 4 hours ago. And when things, the addressing system becomes real for them, so that people like Delivery can, really expand their use across the country. I think those are the main lessons we've learned.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to combine two questions in one, still for you, Sesinam. What specific strategies can be employed to ensure the sustainability of the last mile? And then also, do you have any plans to expand SNU code services to other African countries?
Okay, so let me answer it in reverse. So in terms of plans to expand to every to other African countries, I think we are a little bit ahead of the curve. So SNU code now works in every African country. So I'll encourage everybody out there to take out their phones now and download it and try it out. It is a deceptively simple app. So that's as far as it goes with that. And in terms of strategy, one of the things that we've learned, and it's a little bit counterintuitive to what the polemic might be, that working with government, it's really, really hard, but it is absolutely essential. So we've learned lessons, by looking at some of our competitors who have spent absolute millions and millions of dollars trying to buy sort of ad space and advertise to the general public. But, working with government and becoming a sort of official addressing system is absolutely crucial. We consider it a marketing exercise. We consider the building of an addressing system private enterprise, but sort of the marketing component is working with governments. Well, governments have a big interest in addressing systems, and there are many reasons why they would push it out to the general public. So that's a big component of it. It's something that we have resisted for a long time, but it's something that is actually a reality now that we need to deal with. And I think that's one big part of the strategy. The next big part of the strategy is to look for the people who need the consumers to use an address. So, for example, I could spend, a lot of time on the streets trying to download my app, right? Or I could go to, now I don't know whether you have ShopRite in Zambia, but I could go to ShopRite, right, and get to get their addresses, and that's often more effective. So going through institutions that already have the trust of the people is absolutely essential for rapid growth, and that has been our experience on the ground.
Just one last question from your end. So, how can SNU code be integrated with other technologies and solutions to create a more efficient and sustainable logistics ecosystem?
Okay, so we've built SNU code specifically to be integrated with other technologies. Traditionally, the way to do this would be API, but I think you remember that I mentioned that SNU code works offline. And so if it works offline and you use an API, then all of a sudden you need to be back online. So we built something it's called SNU code, which allows what's it called, the SNU code app to run on your device in the background, and it effectively acts like an API but on your device. So Delivery could integrate, I think it's like 8 lines of code to integrate smoothly into the delivery system. And then after delivery, we'll be able to work offline, right? And do all their deliveries and optimization, fly drones, and all of that offline. So you have all the capabilities of Snoop Code on your own application with your logo and everything. And Snoop Code essentially falls into the background. We feel that this is absolutely important because we are not a company that really needs to be in the face of people, but we, a huge part of our success will be all the little applications that, probably some of the people in your audience might be building. We've seen people build really, really interesting things on people. One of them has been Snoop Red. It's a system for emergency services, right? So that the whole Snoop Red app, the whole Snoop code in it is able to talk to Snoop code on the same device and be able to work offline. Because when you have a disaster, sometimes the internet goes away. Or when you have an emergency, you don't want somebody dying because somebody do not have credit, or the internet falls down, or an earthquake has destroyed the infrastructure. And you can have something that not only integrates with any mobile device, but it's also resilient when all the infrastructure collapses. I hope that's the question.
All right. Thank you, Sesnam. I think now we're going to come to on the Zambian side. So I know the audience is eagerly waiting to ask questions. We are almost ending our questions on our side. So I'll try to combine the questions, maybe 2 questions in one, so you can take a shot at that. So these ones are for you, James. So can you elaborate some of the challenges faced by traditional industries like construction and manufacturing in Zambia in terms of optimizing route to market and supply chains? And then how did you introduce the last mile solutions and e-ordering for individual homes, builders, impact Chilanga Cement business strategy?
I think it's true for not just last mile but most logistics businesses, and what affects trust is again OTIF, on time and in full, and there are things that obviously that interact together that affect this. First thing is consignment value. For example, a 30-ton truckload of sugar is about 600,000 kwacha or more. A 30-ton cement to be about 70, 80,000 kwacha. Same quantity, different consignment value. What it means is that the guy who's moving sugar can charge a higher rate because his product has high consignment value. So if you are a transporter or you are a biker or with a tuk-tuk and you have to decide which product to move, probably you're gonna move which is less dirty. So the nature of the product as well is gonna affect when you're trying to develop your last mile solution. So for cement, once you break down the quantities, the problem becomes exponential. Because if someone wants 2-3 bags, yes, I want 2-3 bags delivered to my site. What kind of transport are you going to use? And is it going to be optimal? And why not just go for something which is smaller but of a high consignment value, and you don't have to worry about your vehicle getting dirty? So that's the biggest challenge. The other part is route optimization, and this is true for most logistic business. How do you optimize your route? What is the cheapest, quickest, and most efficient way are you going to deliver that product? So how do you optimize your route? You have 2 customers, 2 different sides, 5 kg, 5 bags, 15 bags. So how do you optimize the route? So all these things, when they interact, affect your own time and in food delivery, which again affects your trust. And once you sort out the trust aspect of the business, then you get a lot more buy-in. So I think that's where those are the biggest challenges we had. So for us, look, we are a cement business. We make really good cement. We are not we're not a delivery business. We're not a last mile business. By far, we're not a technology business. And I have a saying which I live by: have an unwavering commitment to reality. And we look ourselves in the mirror and say, we can't do this. So what do? Let's involve people who are smarter than us, who are building these businesses, who are building these platforms, who have these capabilities. And can we find a plug-and-play solution that we can tweak a little bit to actually help us solve these problems? So in terms of how it has impacted our strategy, we've seen a lot of buy-in, and with regard to our distributors, especially when it comes to introducing new technologies. So last mile solutions and e-ordering, what they've done is that they've served like a gateway to introducing other things. And you know what? We are on top of that. We also have this other solution that I think might work for you. And because we're so successful with introducing that, we have about 99.5% adoption rate when it comes to these technological solutions for our distributors. It's helped introduce other aspects or other digital solutions as well. So I think that's been a good win for us.
Yeah, big hand for Chilanga Cement. Yeah, so I was just thinking in my mind how it's going to be easy. Everything is digital. Can you come up with digital cement? I'll be the first customer. Yeah, so these two sets of questions are for Wallace. How do you balance the need for fast and efficient last mile logistics with the need to ensure sustainability and reduce on your environmental footprint? Then the second one is what role do you see in the public-private partnership playing in building a sustainable last mile logistics?
Thank you. So our environmental footprint, what we're doing now is we started thinking about going electric. So we've got our asset partner that basically comes in to fund our assets, and their 2023-2024 plan is to see how we can start getting into electric vehicles. It's talking about motorbikes, talking about bicycles, and so on. So it's still a very new space in the country, and that's why the infrastructure doesn't exist. And it's not as easy as you just importing an electric bike. You have to figure out how it's going to maintain these electric bikes. You can't just take them to the usual electrician that fixes your bulbs at home. So you're also looking about things like charging stations, you're looking at things like batteries, where you're going to get all these things. So unfortunately for us, or fortunately too, we consider ourselves as market leaders in going into spaces that haven't been explored yet. The same way we came into our free delivery and built the whole ecosystem is probably what we are looking to do with going electric. You have to own the whole value chain. So you have to be the guy that's coming together with the batteries. You have to be the guy that's thinking about charging stations. You have to be the guy that has the engineers to service these bikes. So it's a big plan for us for the next 2 years. That's why we see ourselves going, and us contributing, of course, to the environment. We also try and educate our customers when it comes to packaging. So if you use Afri Supermarket today, chances are very high that whoever is going to deliver that product is going to use a wooden crate. So we are trying to get rid of these plastic bags that people used to deliver. Unfortunately, for food, it's a bit difficult because you're looking at Walmart's bags. And we don't control a huge part of that part because the restaurants do. But what we've noticed is our customers also understand the importance of contributing positively to the environment. So they stopped asking for things like cutlery because they're plastic cutlery. So, and we're trying to come up with ways of how we can reward these customers if they choose not to get cutlery from the restaurants. So that's how we're contributing towards that. So it's a whole 360 solution, because it has to start with the assets that we use to deliver our goods. And then it goes to educating the customer, and then it goes now to also the customer adopting that. The second question was about
The second question.
oh the private sector.
Yes.
So like I mentioned, we don't have this infrastructure we're talking about. So if I was to buy an electric bike today and it needs to be charged, I don't know where I would go. So we believe the private sector has a role when it comes to people like us or companies like us, and seeing how we can start building this infrastructure as we go on. We are lucky that Zambia now has got at least 24-hour supply of electricity, which gives us a very big advantage in the Southern African region. So we can start there. But we need to see how we can start developing this, even together with the filling stations. You should have charging stations also for electric vehicles too. Because if this environment exists, then it will be easier for us now to start seeing people importing electric cars and so on and so forth. So even the government has to come in and probably just make it easier for you to import an electric asset. We're talking about taxes, regulations, and so on. So if they come and build that infrastructure, then we as the logistics companies it will be easier for us to adopt it now.
Yeah, fantastic. The final question of the day to everyone. How do you look at the future of logistics in Zambia? And what can we learn from huge global companies like Amazon and FedEx? So I'll start with James.
So, where there's inefficiency, there is opportunity. And I think from my experience, there are a lot of inefficiencies and opportunities in our logistics sector in Zambia. So, but it will take the government providing enabling environment, as everyone says, and also planning for this. I can give you a practical example is when the city planners, the next 10, 20 years, and after delivery, and the team have thousands of motorbikes on the road, where are they going to park? Right? So it's having, like I said, it's where we're going. Let's plan for it. And it takes everyone from maybe as a private sector, we need to start thinking of maybe to solve the consignment value, maybe I can put my cement in a 10 kg bag, 5 kg bag. So we have to be innovative and think about the future like that. I mean, for me, that's how we should approach it.
Wallace?
So the question, yeah.
The question is, what's the future for the last mile logistics?
I think the future for last mile logistics is very positive in Zambia. We've seen it grow in a very short space of time. Like I was mentioning when we started, we're probably some of the, if not the biggest buyers of motorbikes. But nowadays, it exists in the market. We have many suppliers, many other brands. So it's definitely headed in the right direction. Of course, we still have challenges when it comes to infrastructure, like James is talking about. All these bikes, where they're going to park. There's quite a lot that still has to be done. And unfortunately, on the government level, there's a lot of work that has to go in there. So what we can learn about big companies like FedEx, I'll speak about Amazon because I understand Amazon as an e-commerce company. Number one is you have to be very innovative. I mean, things change so fast. If you think about Amazon as a company, their e-commerce part is just a fraction of who they are. I mean, Amazon has got web hosting services, which is massive. It's huge. So you have to be very dynamic when it comes to changing times. So look for an opportunity, adopt to that opportunity, and see how you can position yourself to service that market. And you also have to be very ambitious. I mean, Amazon has taken 20-something years to build, but they built a monster of a business. So even us, for example, if I look at Afri Delivery, Afri Delivery is no longer a food delivery company. Afri Delivery is a tech company. Afri Delivery is a logistics company. I mean, we're doing so many other things, because eventually when you want to look at the valuation of your business, you don't want to just be known for this one thing. So even when you're building something, you really, really have to be very ambitious. People might call you crazy, but it's fine. You have to be ready for that. So yeah, I think those are the lessons I can give out.
Thank you very much. The last question, Sesenam, what's the future of your logistics in Africa? Last take, 1 minute response. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think the future of logistics in Africa is very bright. It's one of the few, industries where, location matters. So it's hard for somebody in India to do the delivery of your food, or it's hard for an AI robot in the US to do that sort of thing. It is a sort of job that will need to be done by a human, at least within a sort of short to medium term. And a lot of African countries are coming into this space where there is a lot of technology. So if you look at when, Europe and everybody set up their addressing systems, they didn't have GPS, they didn't have mobile phones, they didn't have a lot of the technologies that we have available to us today. So there's a real opportunity for some of the most innovative things that come up in the next few years in the space of logistics to come out of Africa and the developing world as a whole. And so it's a really open space here for a lot of the young people sat in the audience to create the next big thing in logistics, because the logistics in Africa, I do not believe is going to be logistics in Africa. I do not believe it's going to follow the same pattern as what has happened in Europe. And so there's a lot of room for innovation. There's a lot of room for original thinking, and yeah, looking forward to what all of you will go.
Thank you so much. Great discussion with everyone, and great insights. Very happy and excited about last mile logistics in Zambia and in Africa, as we've heard from the panel discussions. A big hand for James Wallace and Sesenam. So I'm just gonna ask if any of the audience has got some questions for the panelists. The more you ask, don't blame me for us staying longer here. My work is done. Yeah, but now it's question time.
So the question I have is, how do you deal with competitors that are diluting the quality of service or products?
So the only way to deal with competitors is, number one, innovate. When we started what we're doing now, we never assumed we wouldn't have competitors. So my job as the CEO of the company is to think ahead, 5-10 years ahead. And that's why I'm saying that even if most people know us for food delivery, there's so many other things that we're doing that the food delivery part becomes a very small part of our business. So you have to be very, very innovative. And of course, so we focus a lot on customer retention, which means we're a very customer-centric business. So our job is to make our customers happy. I keep telling my team is, even if you don't get a new customer, don't lose the customer you already have. So we're very focused on making customers that we have happy, good customer service, so on and so forth. The market is big enough for everybody still in the moment, and I believe in creating value and charging for it. There's always someone that's going to pay for that value. So my concern is not the person coming into the market and charging low. My biggest concern is actually someone that's coming into the market and offering our consumers or customers a bad service, and then customers just assume that all delivery companies are the same. That is my biggest issue. But of course, like I mentioned, innovate, innovate, innovate. Your job is just to build, because whatever you are doing, someone is coming for that lunch. So you always have to be 5-10 years ahead. Yeah.
Anyone?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Chisepo. I work for Boso. I have 3 questions. The first one is, you spoke about educating your customers. How do you go about that? How have you gone about that as Afri Delivery? The second question I have is tech adoption. How have you done that for a market that's stuck in its ways? They are really not about adopting tech, and you're a tech company. Are they still calling you on the phone, or are you getting them to use your app? And the last question is about international expansion. I heard you ask him about international expansion. I didn't hear you ask him about international expansion. So I'm interested in knowing how Afri Delivery has gone about that, what your experiences have been expanding internationally. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll start with educating the customers. So when we started, the biggest advantage you have is when we started, our service like ours didn't exist. So of course, it was easier for us to educate one customer after the other. And that's how we just grew. And another thing is like I mentioned, we're a very customer-centric business. So how we do advertising is by people talking about us. So I make sure I give you a good service to the fact that you want to educate your people or your friends about it. I remember during COVID, someone went to somebody's house and they had a magnet on their fridge that said, "Don't go out, use Afri Delivery." I don't know that person. I've never met that person. But I believe we, at some point, gave that customer good service to the point that when they're having guests, they're able to show them that. So we just focus on service and hope that people will learn about it. For us, we never raised money to do aggressive marketing. We grew one customer after the other, and we just made the name big. And of course, COVID was a catalyst, so it also helped. When it comes to tech adoption, so we have been pretty successful in building tech that is very easy to use. So we have our own in-house team. I do the system architecture. So how our app looks like, I design that in my head, and then I tell my co-founder, code this. He codes it. So we try as much as we can to build very easy to use tech, and something that someone can even use even if they can't see. So that's one. So don't overcomplicate your tech. What else?
Expansion.
Okay, the expansion. So we don't plan to expand as what Afri Delivery is, but we plan to expand in partnership in parts of the service. For example, like if I look at Afri Delivery, I can look at software as a service part and expand that alone. I can look at the groceries part and expand that alone. But what we do is we have built a pretty good network of founders or co-founders that are like us that probably need 1 or 2 solutions that we have, and that's what we use to expand. So if I'm expanding, for example, there's a service we're expanding to Cape Town, but we're not going to expand it as Afri Delivery. So we're going to take a very small part of the thing that you see there and expand that part, because the solution that our other co-founders or other colleagues are looking for. So you don't necessarily have to expand your whole business, or you don't necessarily have to expand what people see you now. But if you got the money to do that, you can easily do it. But we don't. So we just expand what we can expand, and then eventually we can start introducing the other services.
Thank you so much for this event and for this opportunity to learn quite a bit about the logistics sector. So my name is Eric, and I'm from Zikta. So I'm glad to learn where we're going wrong in certain aspects, and I'm taking note. Perhaps I've got like 1,000 questions, but I'll stick to one. Perhaps the main concern from everything that I've heard, especially from you, Wallace, is that you seem very ambitious, which is a good thing. But then I don't hear much about partnerships. And one of our major thrusts is to build a functional e-commerce ecosystem. And an ecosystem, I think, depends on a lot of players. So I was thinking about you talking about eventually importing electric bikes, and then you have this delivery company. At the same time, you have a platform. So that's a lot of things at once. So I was just wondering, what is the sector like in terms of the ecosystem? In terms of partnerships, are there opportunities for you to partner with other providers of some of these different services so that we could have a more comprehensive e-commerce ecosystem, which even includes perhaps storage facilities and all? Because from our perspective, most of our courier operators tend to conduct business the way you do. So they'll buy something, let's say, from a supermarket and immediately deliver to the end user customer. And that doesn't create the opportunity to scale up businesses to the levels of eBay or Amazon. So I would just like to find out what the opportunity for partnerships are for growing the e-commerce ecosystem, especially noting that for modern times, it is a big point for international trade as well. This is the direction of international trade, and we need to grow our local ecosystem for e-commerce to compete effectively. So I'd just like to find out that, and also say hi to Sassinam. Good to see you. Still digitally, wish you were here, but yeah, thank you so much.
So I'm just very happy that we have Zicta. Before Wallace probably answer what you were asking. So for one, myself, I've been an advocate for last mile logistics. When you look at the gaps that we have, it's like every business wants to be in the urban setup and they forget about the rural setup. But there's also money in the rural setup. And then you spoke about something which I'm very passionate about, partnerships. I think I did ask that question. What is the landscape of partnerships looking like between public and private sector? And then also, if you heard from the discussion, I think some of the challenges which we would like government to help us would be, say, infrastructure. Like we were saying, if they, after delivery today, had 20 million bikes, parking would be a problem. The towns would be congested. So a solution would be, there are no bikes in the rural areas. Why not take them there? There's enough space. So, but how do we provide storage for those? So these are some of the issues that we can look around in terms of partnering with government. Also government providing the infrastructure. Right now, the king of the road is the cars. But we have bikes. We also have bicycles. They are also king of the road because every morning when I'm waking up, I live in Chadley, as I'm coming for work, I see 50, 100 bicycles carrying loaves of bread. So, but they have to compete with the same road with cars. So these are some of the partnerships we need to talk with government so that way we can be able to have, say, dedicated lanes for maybe bicycles and motorcycles and stuff like that. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. So when you talk about partnerships, yes, there's room for partnerships. But the harsh reality about partnerships is there has to be alignment. So what that means is, as much as we would want to get into partnerships, there has to be some sort of alignment. Otherwise, you spend half your time trying to build that alignment, which now just wastes time. So unfortunately, I'll still speak about Zicta. So we are regulated by Zicta, but Zicta insists that we put, I don't know what to call it, Helen. Okay, a list. Okay, a list of prohibited items somewhere in our office. But I tell Zicta my customers are not coming to my office. This list is supposed to go on the app. And we say, okay, it's here on the app, but why do you still need it in my office? My customer is not coming to my office. So I'll still challenge the regulators and the big bodies. I think the first thing you need to do is product education. We're in what we call the disruptive space. So the businesses that we are building now are businesses that nobody saw coming. So the first thing before we start doing partnerships, you have to understand my business. If you understand my business, it becomes easier for me to come to you and propose something. That's why it's easy for us to get into partnership with other international brands, because we lack alignment. And the reason why you lack alignment is because you don't understand each other in many cases. So as much as we want to get into partnerships, we have to know that we're getting into partnerships and we have common interest. Yeah.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? My name is Wamlume from SolarPoint. So we are last mile distributors of solar home systems. So when I hear last mile, I'm thinking of a hat. Can I ask 2 questions? Sorry? Can I ask 2 questions? So my first question is, how can we address the rural tax in terms of logistics, where the people with less income in rural areas pay more for logistics? And the second question, and I was hoping I could have found someone from ERB, is if anyone has been in the real last mile, you'll notice that everyone has used what is known as changanya fuel. And it's usually because the nearest filling station is very far away, and you're forced to use these boys who have, I don't know where they pick it up from. And so the second question is, with the development of the last mile, what kind of regulations, should there be a relaxed regulation for filling stations to be set up in rural areas, for example? Yeah.
Can I ask one? Just one. Can I squeeze in one? Oh, yeah. James, this is for you. Thank you. Yeah, so I heard you speak about venture partnerships, venture clients, but I think there are several startups here that might want to hear about that. I think where I come from, we sort of are benefiting from that, not only from Chilanga Cement, but also from a similar brand called Saint-Gobain. So maybe there are some startups here that would want to know what the process is. I wasn't asking for myself.
Thanks for giving back the mic. Thank you. So, I don't know which one I might. So, like I said, I'm not an expert in last mile, and I will not pretend to be. But I'll tell you one thing, especially with maybe it might work, especially when you begin to go down to the rural areas, the most remote areas, is that when you're developing your last mile solutions, try to develop a multimodal last mile solution. In the sense that when you're pricing and you have your models, yes, okay, I'm gonna pick it up by a truck, and it's gonna go by this, but maybe it needs to be a multimodal system. Maybe you need to have a bicycle there, because from experience, we save customers in the most rural areas. But you find the last mile is that it goes by a bicycle, or by, what do you call it, ox cart. So there is that aspect, but I'll let the genius solve that problem. So, so with regard to most of them, I'm sure there are a lot of startup founders here. So usually when you talk about funding, you're talking about venture capital, whether it's Series A, you seed fund and things. So maybe the biggest takeaway I would like you to get from here is that, think a bit differently. Sometimes create your minimum viable product, and instead of going to a company or trying to move around and raise money, go to a company and say, hey, I have this solution, I think it works for you, but what I just need you to guarantee me is business for the next 2-3 years, which will give me some cash flow to invest in the product. So they're not giving you, they're not writing you a $20,000-$30,000 check to get a stake in your business, but they are instead guaranteeing you, say, look, you build this product and we'll pay for it. That's how a venture client is, you know. So like, we're gonna take a chance on you, we'll not give you, but deliver for a month or two, we pay you for the next 2 years. So you have cash flow, and then you can use that and package that and say, look, and go to your venture capitalist. Are there any here? No? And you go to your venture capitalist and say, look, guys, I have guaranteed business for next 2 to 3 years. You can fund me now. So that's the way to look at it as well.
I run a startup company. Getting funding is a problem. And I tell people, when you decide to run your own business, you also have to plan how you're going to fund that business yourself and not relying on others. That's a mistake we make. We think people are going to buy into our idea. Everybody has got their own idea. So what normally happens is that if you're looking for money from elsewhere to fund your business, when that person is willing to give you business, they want to take over your business. They want to run it the way they feel you need to run it. So you have to be careful. And then they will be able to give you a hell lot of conditions that will make you frustrated. And I'm sure Wallace knows what I'm talking about. So you are given little money. For instance, you are given, say, $50,000. But not only are you going to work for that $50,000, they will be able to dictate what you do with that money. Now, that dilutes from your whole business concept that you have developed yourself. You are giving that, handing it over to somebody else. Now they'll tell you, no, say you wanted to buy a car. They'll tell you, no, but this 50,000 I've given you, cars are not eligible. But you know that the car will help you do transport whatever you need. So now my advice to startups is that, like the two gentlemen have spoken here, have a viable product that you can take to the market and try as much as possible to raise your own funding internally. Reduce on your expenses, your fixed costs. Do not overhire. If you need to run that company, maybe 2 or 3 people do that for the next maybe 2 or 3 years. So that way you are not committed, you are not spending money which you are not raising. So that's just my advice. Then on the ERB story, why would we build more filling stations in the rural areas? It's not necessary. Let's use what people can afford to use in the rural areas. Bicycles, e-bikes, maybe non-motorized transport, because that way we are saving the environment. Imagine you build a filling station in Shangombo and it catches fire. Do you expect a fire brigade to come all the way from Lusaka to go and extinguish it there? Because those services are not there. You understand what I'm saying? So let's shoot for things which are within our reach before we even start thinking of other. Sometimes when you expand too quickly and too fast, you end up finding yourself in a lot of danger. So we'll take one more question. A lady, please. You complain about gender balance. Please, one lady, at least I'll feel better. You can just ask anything. You can ask us our names, we'll tell you. Going once, twice, thrice, sword. All right, I think we've come at the end of the program. Where is Farron? Maybe. You can tell us now what next.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that very insightful conversation. Unfortunately, we're not able to officially say goodbye to our online panelists, but thank you for your contribution as well, if you can hear us. All right, we've come to the end of this event. Thank you for being a lovely audience. Sadly, no question from the ladies. Why? I guess they're good listeners. All right. So there is plenty of food. So please feel free to go ahead and get some food. Then for the drinks, we do have a swiping machine for those of us who want to swipe. So yes, that has been provided for those of us that still want to get some drinks. Otherwise, it has been great. Thank you so much for coming through to our lovely panelists. Thank you for that conversation. And it's great to have such insights from the experts in the industry. And I believe that as we move forward, we will use technology and innovation to create a sustainable last mile ecosystem right here in Zambia. All right, let's feel free to interact. Let's feel free to get to know each other a little bit more. Please, the drinks are flowing. There's a swiping machine. The food is plenty. So please, let's go ahead. Thank you so much.